programme. Now, you certainly look like you've been having a great time, but without being too po-faced, some of our viewers have got in touch with us to say they think it looks a bit daft and it looks even a bit objectionable. And one of those is Lee Castleton, who is a sub-postmaster. We've had a question from him for you before. He lost his livelihood in the Horizon scandal. You answered his question then, but he has told us that he thinks that your stunts aren't the kind of thing that you should be doing. And we can have a listen to what Lee has to say just now.
I don't particularly like the buffoonery. I find it very Boris-esque, and I don't think there's any need for it. It's really...
Oh, come on, lighten up. Jesus. The rest of this campaign has been miserable. At least somebody who's campaigning is at least trying to make things fun. Because again, the issue with Ed Davey is that he has this problem with name recognition. Whereas everybody knows who Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak is. If you're a smaller party like the Lib Dems undeniably are in the current political landscape, you need name recognition. You need people to know who you are. And if you can make a name for yourself by people posting funny clips of you on the internet, you know what? Fair play, fair play. Nigel Farage is doing that. His videos of him saying "sus among us, big chungus" on TikTok is how he's getting name recognition amongst younger people who won't know who he is. Ed Davey doing the same thing, but whilst also not being a massive piece of shit like Farage is, you know, he's fine. Again, if you want to criticise Ed Davey, criticise him for all of the Tory policy that he green-lighted as a government minister during the coalition period, all the times he voted with the Tories. That's the real criticism to make of him. There's actual policy positions, but him having fun on the campaign trail, really? That's your gripe? Come on, mate, come on.
Really, really important that we trust him. And trust is never going to be built by swinging around on ropes or paddleboarding in Cumbria. Trust is about engaging with the people that need that engagement.
Do you think you're really taking it seriously?
Well, on Sir Postmaster, my heart goes out to Lee and all the others who were so badly affected, and I'm looking forward to giving evidence to the inquiry, which I campaigned for to hold people to account. But in terms of the things we've been doing, the stunts, actually the real issue is engaging people, and they have done. And one of the reasons I'm so pleased to be on your programme is to talk about what Liberal Democrats are standing for. We're still standing for health and care. We put that at the centre of our manifesto. We're talking about the cost of living, and that's not coming up enough. People are really struggling out there, and we're talking about the environment. We're the ones campaigning against the sewage scandal, for example, and I'm determined in all the seats that we can win across the blue wall against many Conservatives in the West Country and so many other places. People hear about what the Liberal Democrats stand for from our local champions, because we could make real gains at this election.
And we will talk about those policies, and you've already actually had Wes Streeting say your ideas on social care are good ones, and we will...
There's the problem with the sewage crisis. They have better plans than Labour do on the sewage crisis, that's fine. But that doesn't solve the underlying problem. They're trying to slap a band-aid over the top of the massive issues that we have in terms of the wholesale privatisation of water by trying to fix the underlying structural problems with plasters over the top. That doesn't work. Of course, the real solution is to nationalise the water companies, to take away the underlying structural problem, which is that private companies in an inelastic market and a natural monopoly have no incentive to be able to fix problems because they get paid out either way, and they have put the fines into their business model. The only actual solution is to nationalise them, make it so that the accountability becomes democratic rather than market-based when there isn't indeed any market incentives to because of this natural monopoly. And Lib Dems aren't doing this. They do, however, offer slightly more solutions to these problems than the Labour Party do, which is essentially just to try and ignore the problem, hope it goes away, but pretend that they're going to overhaul Ofwat to do something about it when they've not even given us a proper plan to do this. It just seems to be the running theme of this election is Labour saying we have a plan, and they're not explaining how the plan even works.
Come to that, but isn't there a risk, though? We heard it from Lee Castleton. We have had emails from some other viewers about this, that people watch what you're doing and they think you're not really taking this seriously, and perhaps you're not taking them seriously.
Well, we're taking the voters' concerns really seriously. That's why we've been putting forward all these policy proposals. And whenever we do one of those stunts to engage people, so I show that I'm not taking myself too seriously, I'm taking the voters seriously, we've had lots of policy ideas. So when I was coming down that slide...
Yeah, like how many media organisations have talked about the actual policy idea, scrapping two-child benefit cap? They also have like a bunch of things they've stolen from the Labour Party manifesto. That's fair enough, right? They also stole the windfall tax from the Liberal Democrats. But they're actual good policies. Like, one of the policies, chat are going to get mad at me for this, one of their good policies is literally the skills wallets that they're bringing back, just without this really silly name, which is to be able to give people grants to do vocational training in later life, in case, indeed, in this more kind of turbulent world, certain industries become under-resourced to be able to employ people who've worked in these industries for a while. Giving people grants from the government to go and study, to retrain, to reskill in these turbulent marketplaces, that's a good policy. They want to put money into the NHS by taxing people who have the ability to be able to pay. This is a good policy. Of course, the Greens trump them on all of these things by actually having broad structural changes that the Lib Dems don't want to do. Like, fair enough, but if they put out all of these good policies and then the media never reports on them, well, yeah, then that's a problem with the media. And Ed Davey doing a bunch of nonsense stunts to get his name out there so people actually engage with their policies, you know, they don't really have much choice when the media won't cover it. Jesus, I'm defending the Liberal Democrats. What have I turned into?
We were talking about mental health.
But while you were on the slide.
Well, actually, the BBC were covering our policy as I came down, and I was pleased that they did, because it's really important. We've got a crisis, the mental health of our young people. We've got hundreds of thousands of young people waiting for therapies, waiting for counselling, waiting for support. And what we've said is, let's make sure there's a qualified mental health professional in every primary school, in every secondary school. Let's fund that by asking the social media giants to pay more in digital services tax. And so we've come forward with a very, very significant policy. And you know, when I had the baker's hat on, I was baking biscuits with school kids, but we were talking about free school meals.
And one of the policies in your manifesto is to have an office for whistleblowers, to have much more protection for people who call out bad bosses or bad practices in their workplace or wherever else. And you say there it's very important. But Lee Castleton, who was one of those sub-postmasters, and you were a post office minister at a time when some of the Horizon scandal was unfolding, he wants to know, how can we trust anyone with your record on the post office scandal to do the...
I'm going to defend him again. I defended him at the time when the postmasters thing was all in the news. I'm going to defend him again. Like, sure, he made mistakes as post office minister at the time, but at least he wrote back to Alan Bates a couple of times and then took on the case eventually, even after brushing it away, which he shouldn't have done, and he should be criticised for that. But Alan Bates also wrote to the other post office ministers, both Labour, Lib Dem and Tory. None of those people responded. Why is Ed Davey, of all people, getting stick for it when he did far more than I think it was Stephen Timms did when Labour was in this position too? Ed Davey did indeed have some failure on these things, and plenty of other failures for his time as a government minister in the coalition whilst they were, you know, creating all of this austerity that destroyed the country. Fair criticisms. But to try and criticise him for doing more than what the other people did in the post office ministerial role with regards to the sub-postmaster scandal, that's really unfair. Again, this is not a Lib Dem apologetics channel. Ed Davey voted with the Tories more times than plenty of other Lib Democrat ministers during the coalition period. He should be held accountable for his awful choices in the worst period of governance in this country's history, right? The coalition government is the worst government this country has ever had. But the idea that, therefore, defend him from these nonsense criticisms that are unwarranted, you know, you can also hold that position too, by the way, before somebody calls me a Lib Dem apologist, other than the people who are calling me a Lib Dem apologist as a joke in chat right now. I see you.
The right thing by whistleblowers in government?
Well, because the whistleblower was key in the Horizon scandal. We really only heard it in the Panorama programme by BBC in 2015, quite a few years after I left office, and then in 2019 in the High Court case. And that whistleblower from Fujitsu, an insider in Fujitsu, who said actually the Post Office had been telling lies to sub-postmasters, to ministers, to courts and judges, that whistleblower was crucial, as the ITV drama on Alan Bates showed.
But his question is, how could people
Yeah, the only country condemned by the UN for systematic grave human rights abuses of the disabled human being since 2010. Yeah, literally, like, that's the Liberal Democrat record that you should be scrutinising. People laugh about the coalition. They laughed at Daisy Cooper being talked about their U-turn on student fees. And I'm like, yeah, that was bad. That was a promise that they broke. But I will never, ever forgive these people, never forgive the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey included, for their complicity in what basically tantamount to genocide of the population in their time in coalition.
Trust you to protect whistleblowers when you were Post Office Minister, one of the people who was in charge of the system when concerns were already being raised. Now, I know you say you weren't told or you would have done something about it, but some of the campaigners feel that you didn't do enough, that you weren't listening.
Well, I was listening. Actually, I was the first minister to meet Alan Bates, and I took his issues really seriously. The first minister to meet him, and I put his concerns to the Post Office, and I think I was probably the only minister who did that in that level of detail. And I was lied to, just like the sub-postmasters were lied to, just like the judges and the courts were lied to. And that's why the whistleblower is so important. We have to change the system. Laura, we've seen it in the contaminated blood scandal. We've seen it in the Hillsborough scandal. You can't run a system if people are lied to. You need to find a way through that. So we've got several issues, actually. The whistleblower protection, and it's been Liberal Democrats leading on that. The duty of candour, to make sure that public servants have to tell the truth. And there's a whole range of things that I'd like to see changed. And when I give evidence to the inquiry, which I've campaigned for, because I want these people to be held to account, they've imposed the most awful misery on hundreds of people. When we have that inquiry, I'm looking forward to give evidence to it.
Let's talk about some of your other policies then. And you have very movingly made your experience of caring for
Is every Lib Dem solution to a problem just a fake job for nobody? I mean, that does seem to be a lot of the things that they try and propose when it comes to policy, but we do need more whistleblowers, it is true. We need to undermine people like Blair, who say that Freedom of Information Act was one of his worst pieces of legislation, because these people truly, the Blairites of this world, the political class associated with people like Tony Blair, truly believe that politicians and politics should be away of the scrutiny of regular people, that there shouldn't be a connection between people and their elected representatives. There should be this iron curtain between the rightful owners of our information, our elected representatives, and the proletarians beneath them who shouldn't worry their pretty little heads. And something like protection for whistleblowers who can be able to breach that iron curtain between the people and their rulers. I think Ed Davey's got a good policy here, absolutely. Because I hate this idea that we should just trust our elected representatives to do what's best for us without scrutiny, without democratic accountability. It's why you see all of these liberal types, all these centrist liberal types who despise democracy. Just now I've been arguing with somebody on the internet, on Twitter, talking about how it's a good thing. The Labour Party, for example, are trying to undermine their own membership to make it so that the PLP choose future leaders. And I'm like, no, just because you didn't like Jeremy Corbyn or you didn't like Boris Johnson, who were picked by members in votes of memberships within parties, right? Just because you don't like them, just shows you how disconnected you are from regular people who are members of parties. You just want an elected dictatorship. You don't even want an elected dictatorship. You want to be a technocracy. You just want to create a technocracy of democratically unaccountable people, because you think that the people having too much of a choice leads to populism. And I hate to disappoint you folks. I am a populist. I believe in populism. I just don't believe in people using populism as an excuse to support fascism. I'm a left populist, of course.
Your disabled son John, part of your campaign to give more support to carers, and really free adult social care was the centrepiece really of your manifesto, wasn't it? But you also served as a minister during the coalition government between 2010 and 2015. It made significant cuts to the support for people in those kinds of situations. Do you regret that now?
Well, actually, if you look back at that record, the Liberal Democrat record, with great Liberal Democrat ministers, we produced the Care Act of 2014. That came from the Dilnot Commission, and it would have meant that we'd have had proper care from 2015, 2016. What happened then? The Conservatives government alone reneged on their promises. Even though there had been a legislation in Parliament, which everyone had voted for, they broke that.
But while you were in government, the question I'm asking you is about what happened when you were in government, not what happened after. And when you were in government, real term spending on social care fell. There's a lot of evidence that shows that people who have real difficulties in life struggled enormously as a result of the austerity that was enacted during that period when
Austerity is bad now, is it, Laura? Well, finally, we're going to have a scrutiny of the fact that austerity was bad. Could have happened at least 8 years ago, couldn't it, Laura? Yeah, why now? Why wait until austerity has destroyed the country when you were too busy smearing the leader of the opposition at the time who was actually anti-austerity? But no. In 2015, right? In 2015, austerity was just the political opinion everybody had to agree with. There's no money left. There's no magic money tree. We can't raise tax on the rich. How dare Jeremy Corbyn suggest such a thing, right? It could have happened 15 minutes ago when you were interviewing Mark Harper. But no, it was tough choices at the time. But now it's, look, Ed Davey, look what happened to you when you were in government doing austerity. Fine, good, a reasonable criticism to have of him. This could have been a criticism that you could have had of the government at the time. But no, we were too busy talking about how Jeremy Corbyn would destroy Britain, how the Labour Party were unelectable because they were offering literally any opposition to austerity politics, which was completely unnecessary and a political choice. Not that people like Laura Koonsberg treated it like a political choice, though. They treated it like a political necessity when it was not. It was not a political necessity.
you were in government. Do you regret how far it went?
Well, it's true there were some difficult...
It's just how far it went. Again, we're still treating it like a political necessity then, are we, Laura? Just a political necessity that they might have gone too far on. No, we should have had no austerity. Failed ideology.
Decisions. We fought the Conservatives every day. We managed to get through the CARE Act when we were in government. And if that had gone on, 1 million more people would be getting care now. But the Conservatives didn't take that forward.
But I'm asking you about the decision to remove some funding from people who believe very strongly that they needed it. You were part of that government. Do you regret being part of those decisions?
I fought the Conservatives very hard, and here's the key.
You could have resigned if you were that upset about it. You could have said, I don't want any part of this. I'm just asking you a straightforward question.
True.
You've talked very movingly and I think very honestly about the situation that families where they have relatives who need care find themselves in. Many people really struggled with the outcomes of those decisions that were made by the coalition government. Do you regret being part of that?
Well, they were tough.
Literally, you had a choice. Take your ministerial red box or collapse the coalition, right? If you'd have seen that we would have had things like, as has been pointed out already in chat, a country to be impugned by the United Nations for systemic violations of the human rights of the disabled, you had a choice to accept those findings and then back them anyway, or to take those findings and then say enough is enough. We need an election. This government isn't good enough. But no, you were too busy taking your ministerial salary, weren't you, Ed?
Tough decisions, that's really clear. But what we were doing was planning for the future to get much more generous care. And the 2014 CARE Act was at the heart of that. And Liberal Democrats championed that. I remember debating it in Cabinet and pushing that forward. And unfortunately, in 2015, we thought the Conservatives would continue that. And they didn't. And look what they did after we left office and they were by themselves. The first budget of George Osborne, he cut the welfare spending in 1 year by £12 billion. Now, we had stopped that. We had fought them and we'd stopped them cutting the welfare budget by that huge amount, which really caused huge problems. And we planned for the future. And I'm really proud that actually in our manifesto excuses. We're taking forward some of those plans.
Again, absolutely right, Bilderberg. If they'd have let the Tories rule them as a minority government, they would have had far more power to be able to stop this kind of legislation than they would be as a junior coalition partner. No, they should have absolutely let them rule as a minority and say, no, if you want to pass legislation, if you want to pass budgets, you've got to get it through us. You've got to get it through us. And also, they wouldn't have wanted to do that because it would have led them held to more scrutiny on legislation that they did and didn't support. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Bilderberg. They would have been easier to hold the Tories to account as a minority than it would be in coalition.
Because improving care is right in itself. It's hugely important to help the health service. I just don't believe you can sort out the health service and rescue unless you sort out social care. And here's the other thing, which no one is talking about except the Liberal Democrats. And it's partly because of my personal experience. I was a young carer when my mum was terminally ill. Then when my grandmother, who looked after me after my mum died, I looked after her a bit. And then I have my disabled son. So I've got a whole lifetime of caring. And both my own experience and the experience of millions of people out there, millions of people, is that the family carers are critical. And what I want to say at this election is, if you don't support the family carers, as well as the care workers, you're not going to sort this out. And I am absolutely passionate that we're going to do that. We've come forward with probably the most ambitious agenda on it. I'm really excited about it. And you know, because we've talked about it, we've had a really strong reaction from people who really think that we get it.
And to pay for it, you're proposing more than £26 billion of tax rises on big business. Are you not worried about the effect that that might have?
Well, let me take you.
No, I'm not worried. Yeah. What's the meme? Where is it? It was just like the picture of somebody going, is this you? And it's just like the most based thing ever. I mean, yeah, good. Taxes on the rich to fund the care service. Good. Two thumbs up from me. Good things. Lib Democrats, not always terrible. They said their policy prospectus isn't bad.
You through those. On the health and care plan, it's about £9 billion, and there are two big things that we're doing for that. Though, if we're basically taking the tax on banks back to what it was in 2016 under the Conservatives. The Conservatives have cut taxes on the big banks
But you think
massively.
those businesses can take it just
Well,
for a short of time? You think the businesses won't be affected?
They took it in 2016, and the other bit, the capital gains tax, is going to be paid by the 0.1% of the population, who basically the billionaires and multimillionaires, because at the moment they're paying a lower tax rate on the
See, it's cutting through. The narrative on taxing the multimillionaires and the billionaires is cutting through. Greens are setting the agenda on the way we discuss these issues. And again, they are doing so because of the kind of policies that Gary Stevenson, the trader, has marketed to them in his role with Patriotic Millionaires to get the Greens to adopt a wealth tax. And the language specifically that's coming out of them is, we are taxing the multimillionaires and the billionaires. And it's, you know, it's cutting through even with the Liberal Democrats, and they're right to say it. Absolutely.
capital gains than the rest of us on our income. That's not fair.
Do you think you're now to the left of the Labour Party? You're going after Tory seats?
We're the Liberal Democrats, and I'm so proud of our manifesto. We think we can beat lots of Conservatives, some at SNP, and I think the more people look at our manifesto on health and care, on ending the sewage scandal, on the cost of living, the more they look at their local Liberal Democrat, they know they can get a local champion with a big, strong national voice. So I hope people back us on the 4th of July.
OK, we will see. Sir Ed, thanks for coming
Thank you very
in.
much.
It's always good to have you with us in this.
I mean, yeah, literally Gary in his video today endorsed voting for the Green Party, which I was glad to see. But yeah, like, finally we have some scrutiny here, some unfair scrutiny and some fair scrutiny. Just like whenever you scrutinise the Liberal Democrats for their time in coalition, always just it's massively too late when all of the horses have bolted and all of the damage has been done. It's a shame that scrutiny didn't happen in the period when they were actually in government. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.